Today, we're fortunate to have Carlsmed's co-founder, Mike Cordonnier, to interview with us. The reason behind these interviews is to bring our speakers closer to the audience. Hey, Mike.
Hi, Jenny. It's great to see you today.
Good to see you. Why don't you tell us a little bit what Carlsmed does?
Yeah, thanks. So Carlsmed really takes preoperative data of patients and uses a big database of patients that have had surgery before and creates an optimized surgical plan for every patient, and then 3D prints interbody devices for spine surgery that are personalized for that patient. So we really looked at solving this big problem in complex spine surgery that has pretty high complication rates right now. So we take the best data that we have of patients that have had this procedure before and use that to plan every single case. So we have a planning piece to our business, as well as the devices that meet that plan.
Yeah, Mike, so this sounds very exciting, but obviously you're not here today suddenly. Before this, you had a career in orthopedic implants, also engineering. Would you like to share that journey with us?
Yeah. So thank you. It's been a long journey to get here and a fun one. So I've had a mix of experience with startups and large companies, really all focused on orthopedic devices. So I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, and a lot of my career has been in coming up with different devices to fix bones, which in some ways is a very mechanical way to do things. So my very first startup was a small spine company called X-Spine Systems, and we created some novel technologies for spine fusion surgery. And I also leveraged this experience in going to actual dental company that was Zimmer Dental, that started up this whole digital dentistry business, which I know that we have a lot of people inside the 3D Heals network that are into digital dentistry. And ultimately started another startup that was Ellipse Technologies that treated kids with scoliosis with adjustable implants. And it really took all these experiences together to create the need for what Carlsmed is today, of treating these adults with really complex spinal deformities in a way that's going to take both the preoperative plan data and the devices that are implanted and marry those together in a way that's the best for the patient.
So it sounds like you have both the software component as a product and also the hardware side.
Yeah, and our experience is, and really this is what surgeons have been telling us, is that the operative intervention, when they're there in surgery, really needs to match the preoperative plan. And a lot of times there's a gap there because of what's available in the OR to treat that patient at that time. So what we like to do is to move that piece upstream. So before you're ever in the OR, we can work with the surgeons to get the planning exactly right for that patient, and then create the devices that can achieve that plan.
So how is it different from the current options, let's say virtual surgical planning, that's the kind of software we have already, and also, we also have a bunch of 3D printed spinal implants already on the market. How does your product differ from these?
Yeah, and in some ways it's a marriage of the best of software preoperative planning and then what additive manufacturing can really do. So in spine today, generally, the additive manufactured or 3D printed implants for fusion are made in predetermined sizes. And they're made using 3D printed technologies because you can build really intricate lattices for bony ingrowth. But when you're in surgery, the surgeon has to choose generally from various stock sizes, and they take time trialing and fitting those sizes and ultimately modifying the patient's anatomy to fit those particular devices that are there in the OR. And what we do that's different is we do the full surgical plan, and then with that surgical plan, we can create devices that have geometries that are very specific to the anatomy. And for instance, for spinal deformity, we can create devices that have a topography that will fit the natural anatomy of that patient's spine, so that you get really great bone to implant contact, as well as these patients have a three-dimensional curvature, so the implants themselves can correct that curvature to the optimal point. And ultimately, with a little bit of work that's done pre-operatively, we can save a lot of time in the operating room by eliminating that trial and error and selecting the personalized device that's best going to fit that patient.
That sounds really exciting. As you know, I'm a neuroradiologist, so I see a lot of spine images, adult spine images, and there are a lot of terrible spinal deformities because as we get old, it's almost invariably that we will have some kind of degenerative process, and the older you get, the worse it is. And so I do understand there's, you know, I can see intuitively there's a need for your product and service because some of these spines just look terrible. I can't imagine how the surgeon go in there and just fix it with a screw. But how big do you think this population really is from a market perspective? And then the follow-up question will be, can you see that this will be more scalable process for less complex process?
Yeah, great question. Really on the market size, there's about 1.6 million Americans every year that seek treatment for symptomatic adult spinal deformity. So that means not only do they have a curvature beyond normal, but it's causing some symptom for them. So of those patients, about 200,000 seek surgical treatment. And the challenge today is, like you said, this is really complex to get these patients corrected and address their symptoms. So part of our mission is to create a simpler way for surgeons to get the patients to the correction that they need to be by making these implants for them, right? So we believe that 200,000 complex spine procedures will continue to improve as we make the actual surgical intervention a little bit simpler and reduce surgery time and ultimately reduce complications for those patients that elect surgical treatment.
Yeah, very exciting. And I know that you just, based on today's written interview you did for us, that you said you guys finished I would say, not clinical trial, but a cadaver trial.
Yeah, so we're
elaborate on a little bit.
Yeah, so we're really excited. So we believe that we've completed the very first cadaveric validation of taking a adult with a three-dimensional spinal deformity using some smart planning software to correct the deformity virtually in 3 dimensions, and then manufacturing and implanting those implants. And ultimately, we were able, the one that we did most recently was actually a 90-year-old specimen, and with pretty severe coronal deformity for their spine, which is in the view you look from the front. And we were able to correct their deformity within 2% of the plan, using these personalized implants that corrected the deformity and really were able to be inserted with very minimal bone preparation. Two of our board members are actually spine surgeons, and they're the ones that perform the procedure. And we finished that right before the COVID-19 shutdown. So timing was really good. Yeah, timing was really good for us. But yeah, it was extremely successful, and it was the second cadaver validation that we had completed.
Yeah, so it's almost like you know that your prototype works. So yeah. I know. Yeah. So your next stage will be clinical trials, right? It's almost.
Yeah.
Now
so
we have a pandemic.
But yeah, so we're very fortunate. We have what's called a 510K pathway, which means that we're submitting all of our biomechanical test data and safety-related data to the FDA, and we anticipate later this year that we'll be cleared for human clinical use. So we have a really spectacular surgeon advisory board, including, I know you're up in San Francisco, including Dr. Chris Ames, who's at UCSF, where we'll be doing the first procedures later this year.
And hopefully the pandemic is not going to cancel too many elective surgeries, so that we can see some results from your end.
Yeah.
But I also know, Mike, that just based on your past contribution to our blogs and your interview, that you have a lot of futuristic vision about Industry 4.0, and maybe you're also working on 5.0. I don't know. You want to share some of your vision with us?
Yeah, and it's really interesting, like this mix of this era that we're in right now and this COVID era has really driven us towards this low touch economy, being that we're learning how to generally conduct business by minimizing human contact, which is a really interesting, position that we're all in, particularly when it comes to healthcare. And one of the interesting things is that we've been on the advent of, like you said, Industry 4.0, which is this merger of cyber systems and human systems together in order to create mass automation. And the coronavirus situation that we're in right now is really moving us more and more towards that, where we're able to use artificial intelligence, additive manufacturing technologies, as well as cloud computing, just like we're doing right now via our video conference, to be able to, create, everything that we need for our healthcare industry. So for instance, a lot of our surgeon partners have just started to re-engage with their elective surgeries, but their primary way of screening patients is through telemedicine, right? So they use Zoom, other tools like that in order to screen their patients. A lot of what they have done in the past, prior in person, they're now transitioned with these tools to be able to do it digitally. And same is true with in your field with radiology, being that more and more systems are being developed to be able to allow providers, healthcare providers around the globe to access radiology, so that they can properly diagnose and ultimately determine treatment, right? And that's where we believe that the whole field of orthopedic surgery will be transitioning to that, where more and more, where there's less interaction, but the systems that are developed in order to interact between the healthcare provider and the patient become smarter and actually garner more information than what was gathered in the past.
Yeah, well said. I've been thinking a lot lately as well. You know, in this pandemic, you have a lot of opportunity to just think. And I read a lot of books recently, and I almost felt like this pandemic is inevitable. And it's just a matter of time when it happens, because our population density has increased. Globalization is continuing. Basically, we're merging with each other. It's almost just a matter of time when this pandemic is happening. And I think it's probably going to change from, you know, healthcare side, society side, our human society, and how we interact with each other on a fundamental level. I mean, we've always talked about how AI is going to change the radiology industry. And in the back of my head is, am I going to lose my job because of this? Because more and more automation. But that's that, you know, the ultimate goal for all of us is to improve humanity, improve healthcare, human happiness. So yeah, no, I love that kind of conversation, and it's something that I feel like I'm living in rather than I can actually have a broader perspective. And it's always good to hear someone like you, you know, have a vision and a theory around it. It's a fun thought exercise.
Yeah, and absolutely. And, you know, the other piece to that, you know, we really think about how does additive manufacturing fit into this, you know, with, you know, AI-based radiology, you can more precisely pinpoint what sort of treatment, when it comes to an orthopedic treatment, if you're talking about joint replacement or, you know, fusion, you can more accurately predict what the best treatment for that patient will be in the OR. And those are things that have been fairly well established. And how additive manufacturing is starting to creep in is now it's becoming economical enough to be able to scale at a point that you can not just take what that optimal treatment is, but also create that optimal device for each patient, right? And that's what really gets me excited about you know, this point in time that we're at, and healthcare and technology coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you basically create an end-to-end solution from the virtual world all the way to the physical world. Yeah, pretty exciting, Mike. And I very much look forward to your presentation in our upcoming 3D Heals 2020. I know you have a lot more to share about the technology and your futuristic views about the healthcare industry. So thank you very much for the short interview today, and I will see you soon.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it, Jenny. All right, bye-bye.